I've come to realize that not only are other people less aware of the impact their actions can have on others than I usually am, but there is a significant chasm between what people consider as affecting others, which I am unfortunately very affected by. And that sentence was pretty fucked up, but essentially, you know how some people get overstimulated in environments where other people just do not because the same stimulations don't affect them as severely? Well, what I'm trying to say is it's like that, but in a circumstantial way. So here's the anecdote. You know, I always have one. Earlier this year, my living situation changed suddenly. I live in my partner's parents' house, and the occupancy has fluctuated over the years as some of us come and go and move and transition. Although I recognize that I should technically get no say in who is allowed to live here because it's not my house and I am also a guest, it was particularly upsetting to me not to have been told that occupancy was changing. I was an afterthought. I only found out that people were moving in while they were in the act of moving in. And as a side tangent, that felt really awful. Not only was it inconsiderate not to be told, regardless of whether my opinion mattered in the inevitable follow through, but as it should be pretty apparent by the theme of my videos, it wasn't so much that things were changing, but that I had so little autonomy in that change. It reverted me right back to feeling like a kid, like who gets to pick absolutely nothing about their life when their parents make large decisions like moving, which is exactly what happened. I was the kid in the situation, and the parents made a decision that changed the living situation without consulting, and that fucking stings as an adult. As much as that dynamic is still there, at a certain point, as an adult, I kind of expect to be treated as an equal housemate. But nope, I'm still just a kid who doesn't even get the consideration of a heads up that new people are moving into the house. But anyway, on top of the mental kerfuffle of processing whether I have any right to feel upset about it, if my opinion wouldn't have changed anything anyway, there's also a layer of a total lack of thought for how anyone else gets affected by that big of a change. Like, how could anyone not think that other people would want to know this is happening? Whether you're neurospicy or not, getting a new housemate is huge. I get that it was supposed to be a minimally invasive surgery, but of course, it turned into an amputation. One new housemate was supposed to just be staying with us on weekends between working on the family business's current job site. But then that turned into them and their partner staying over whole weekends because it was a pain to drive back and forth to their apartment in another town. And that's to the point where I was completely understanding. I thought it was all a practical decision and it was fine. But then the next thing I know, they're moving out of their apartments. The partner is staying here 24/7 and they're both sleeping here the majority of the week. And this development had the added stressful factor of not having a deadline. Who knew when or if they'd find another apartment anytime soon? That was the point that I became distraught, because nobody else had any idea or ability to consider how much this would affect me, not just mentally, but physically. My office and bedroom is in the basement below the guest room they were occupying for that time period, and unfortunately, it's really loud whenever someone is doing anything above me. Sound echoes. I hear every footstep, every them just touching something on their bedside table. Suddenly, I've got new limiting conditions if they're home. I cannot do my work in the same capacity. The availability I have to make YouTube videos is beholden to their schedule now, and the upper floor noises being quiet. I can't focus on editing and writing in my space when they're hanging out and talking and watching things. It completely disrupted my sleep, too, not only from me being a light sleeper and them staying up doing things at odd hours of the night, but even if I did manage to get to sleep, the one had a blaring god-awful phone alarm that they'd let go off every 5 minutes for half an hour straight every morning. I could literally feel the vibrations from their alarm through the walls more than my own alarm going off in my bed, for whatever reason, to do with this stupid house's construction. So not only could I suddenly not do any of the things that I normally do on my own schedule anymore, I was disrupted in my sleep, and ended up fully relocating to a couch somewhere else for far, far too many nights over those couple months. And as much as I know that certain factors affect me more than others, and I know no one else is really seeing the disruption this has caused my daily life, because I live in the corners and shadows. It still baffles me that, regardless of how minimal the move was supposed to be, even if I wasn't neurospicy, there was no consideration given to thinking it would affect other occupants enough to tell them it's even happening. On this journey of reconciling what's different for me and how I react to things, this is one of those situations I feel as though it doesn't matter. No matter who you are, nobody would take well to suddenly having the circumstances around them change so much that you can't work on the schedule that you have been, you can't relax in the ways that you want to, and you can't sleep when you usually do or in your own bed anymore. Just, there you go. Deal with it. It's not just me, right? Like, that's allowed to suck. I'm allowed to be upset that I didn't warrant the consideration of a heads up, even if I didn't get a say, right? There are so many things that I'm coming to discover are a byproduct of how my brain works differently than others, but I'm still hung up on whether some of it is still universal, or as universal as can be. Like how nobody likes to be tortured. I think everyone can agree on that. But is there really a person out there that would actually be totally unaffected and not care about such a change to their lifestyle? Maybe. It sounds unbelievable, but maybe. However, the real key to this line of questioning isn't necessarily that someone would be unbothered by interruptions to their work or sleep, but that perhaps those new factors wouldn't be enough to have affected them at all. Like, for somebody else, maybe none of the noises would have changed their ability to focus or write or make YouTube videos or sleep. They could be a heavy enough sleeper that none of the alarms bother them. It's not my fault that these things did completely fuck up my daily life. What affects me is gonna affect me. But what I'm also wondering, is it anyone else's fault for not knowing those factors could affect someone else so much? Is it my problem of feeling like a perpetual afterthought because I experience things so differently? Is it that other people aren't inconsiderate so much as they can't predict my reaction because they don't experience those effects at all? I've hit a point where I'm starting to gaslight myself. Of course, I've always been more sensitive to things, but do other humans seriously not have preferred conditions regarding their basic necessities? I don't have to be neurospicy to be a light sleeper. Anyone else would be pissed off that they can't sleep in their own bed anymore, right? Why is it so hard to discern what is justifiable to be bothered about and how much? Because as much as I'm coming to terms with the fact I may, technically, need some accommodations which other people's don't, if I want to live the same quality of life. I've spent 30 years putting up with stuff the way that it is, and just being pissed off about it. So I'm struggling to know where to draw that line now. What things are a matter of asking for more because I'm more sensitive, and which things have I just been done dirty on in life?